if you press down on the time knob, you can resync the LFO so that it'll always start like on the downbeat or whenever you want to start the song. So it can always be exactly on the beginning of the measure or wherever you want to start it. You can hear the LFO resync really good with the phaser. Phaser to like kind of a quick phaser. Press down on that time knob, you're gonna hear it restart. You can also use it as a kind of a rhythmic effect. Now another thing about the effects, I'm going to set the phaser to 4-1 phaser. I'm going to go to echo and set that to a really fast echo. Really fast echo. If I jump back to my phaser, and remember that phaser was set to a longer phaser. That's still for like 4 beats. Now if I go back to the echo, that's set to the quicker echo. So as you jump around from effect to effect, it remembers where you had it set. So you don't have to change effects and then go back to your echo and reset it to where you had it. It's going to know where you had it, and it'll default back to that until you change it. And you can also use the filter knobs on top of the channels in conjunction with the effect. So if I have a delay going on my effect, and then turn my filter knobs. So it's still filtered at echo. Now, how many of y'all are familiar with the new software effects in Scratch Live 2.0? If you're not, if you look right here, there's a tab on my screen that says DJ Effects. Scratch Live now has software effects built into the software in the Scratch Live. So, just set something up here real quick. On the left, it loads it on the left. If I want to load it to the right deck, press it and it loads to the right deck. Now you're thinking, well, what if I want to load something on one of these decks? How do I do that? There are only 2 strips for 4 decks. The way you switch focus, and with the 68, this button up here, the layer shift button on the mixer, if I press that, you can see these red rings around the top 2 decks. You switch down to the bottom decks. So now that's controlling my secondary decks. If I want these to control my primary decks, I press it again, it jumps back up to my primary decks. And this button will change colors. When it's orange, it's controlling your primary decks. When it's red, it's controlling your secondary decks. Now, what if you don't want, like, these first 2 decks to be your primary decks? What if you have 4 turntables set up and you want 2 and 3, the ones on the middle, to be your primary decks? You can do that too. Go to your setup screen, go to your hardware tab, and down here at the bottom, see this option to select primary decks. I can click on that and I can choose decks 1 and 2, decks 2 and 3, decks 3 and 4, decks 1 and 4. And obviously, whatever 2 are your primary decks, the other 2 are going to be your secondary decks. Click on that. If I had another laptop set up, this green button would turn orange, and it would let me know it's controlling USB-B. I could still, on either laptop at any time, use my filters on the channels, use the crossfaders, add effects to those channels. The only thing I can't do on my laptop, if the focus is for the other one, is use these channel strips on the side to control it. That's it. Other than that, I can still mix, add effects, use my filters, change songs, whatever I want to do on my laptop, just like I had control. Now, the main thing about these strips, you're going to be able to control all your cue points and all your loops. If these are lit up, that means there's a cue point in that position. You have 5 cue points on each track in Scratch Live you can set. For those of you who are familiar with Scratch Live, a cue point, you can set it, and anytime you press that cue point, it'll automatically jump to that point in the song at any given time. So I have a cue point on this track set on a kick and a snare at the beginning of the track. So it's real easy to trigger a cue point. Now to set a cue point, all you have to do is press one of these blank buttons and set a cue point. I want to set another one. Press it. Now if you want to delete it, there's a delete button here. Hold the delete button down, press the ones you want to delete, and they're gone. So it's just that quick. So I want to set a key point, set it, trigger it, delete it, set it up. Real easy, real quick. Now your loops. In Scratch Live, you have different ways you can loop material. You can do a manual loop where you're setting the end point, the beginning of the loop, and the out point, and then it'll close and loop. So if you're a little off with your timing, it's going to be off. You also have auto loops that'll automatically set a 1-bar loop, 2-bar loop, 4-bar loop, whatever, a half-bar loop, automatically based on the BPM of the track. To set a manual loop, these buttons up here are your loop buttons. We'll switch between orange and green. Now there's a green stripe on the right side of the buttons and an orange stripe on the left side of the buttons. When this button is orange, if you look on this green stripe, it says manual, so now you know you're in manual mode. If you follow that green stripe down the side of the buttons, on each button, it'll tell you what that button does when it's in manual mode or the orange mode. If I press it and it turns green, on this green stripe it says auto, so now I know I'm in auto loops. If I follow it down that side on the green stripe, I know that this one, first button in auto loop mode, controls the loop. In manual mode, it controls the endpoint. So it's real visual and easy to figure out. So let's start off with the manual loops. I'm going to press the endpoint to start a loop, and then the out point to loop it. And if you can see the screen, when I press the endpoint, you'll see a green bar start on here, a loop bar. And when I press the out point, it's going to close that bar and start looping. In, out. So you can see the loop going. I purposely made it a little off so I can show you something else. If you want to adjust the loop, if your timing's not quite right, say I want to adjust the out point. I'm going to press the out button on the mixer, and now I can use this knob to scroll through this loop and get it set right where I want it. In the club, you'll probably do this in the headphones, but alright, so if I get my loop where I want it now, I hit the out button again, and there's my loop. Now if I want to make that loop shorter or extend it, I can press down on this knob and turn it to the left to make it shorter, or turn it right and extend it. Right, so that's and the bottom button that says loop will turn your loop on and off. Now in auto loop mode, if I press the first button, that'll create an auto loop. And if you look right here, these numbers right here, as I turn this knob, these numbers are changing. Whatever one of those numbers has the red box around it, that's the parameter it's going to use to set your auto loop.